You train your body, and what about your mind? Today, you will hear about mental health. What exactly does that mean, and what can you do? Welcome to Sports and Business. I am Kerstin Thürmer, high performance and mindset coach and passionate endurance athlete. I help people to achieve their life goals with full energy in business and in sports. Subscribe to my show to not miss any episode. My guest today lives in Rotterdam in the Netherlands. She is a corporate well-being manager, mindfulness teacher, and mental health coach. Welcome, Katya Borodulya.
Thank you for this lovely introduction, Kirsten. It's really nice to be here.
Great to have you. I'm really happy. So let's talk about your topic, Katya. Why is mental health important?
Well, I think we hear more and more about mental health in general. We used to hear a lot about our physical health, how important it is to keep the right diet, to move enough during the day, so we don't get any physical complaints. But only lately, in the past few years, people started to talk about mental health and its importance. And the example that I often like to give, that mental health is like recharging your phone battery. Often when we see that our battery is about to die, we even start to panic and we find a way to recharge it as soon as possible. But it is much more difficult when it comes to mental health, unfortunately. People tend to postpone this or to ignore it or avoid talking about it because it was not really socially acceptable for a while. But luckily the things are changing, and the better care we take of our mental health, the more healthy we are in general, I think.
I like that picture a lot about the phone battery. And yeah, sometimes we may feel that we should recharge, but we simply don't do it. And like I said in the intro, we train our body. Everybody knows how important it is to move. But yeah, how about training our mind?
Yeah, training our mind is equally, if not more important these days. And one of the great ways to train our mind is to practice noticing our signals earlier or noticing our habitual patterns. And the way we can train it, for example, through mindfulness practice or meditation practice.
Mm-hmm. So do you have any routines you are using for yourself?
Yeah, we can even try together if you like.
Okay,
Maybe
how would that work?
Just a very short mindfulness practice. And meditation is just one of the ways to practice mindfulness. And mindfulness means intentionally paying attention to whatever is happening right here, right now, without judging your experience or labeling your experience. So we can try just for a few minutes and see how it goes. It's as simple as just paying attention to the breath.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, should we do that? Okay.
Sure.
So make sure you're sitting comfortably.
Mm-hmm.
If you have a chair with the back, don't lean too much to the back. So the spine is self-supported. Feet are uncrossed, flat on the floor. Hands are relaxed on top of the legs. Shoulders are relaxed. Maybe roll the shoulders up into the back and keep them down, away from the ears. If it feels comfortable, you can close your eyes or just lower the gaze, or even turn a quarter from the laptop so the screen light doesn't bother you too much. And take a moment to notice how you feel. Just this first answer that you get. What's happening when you look deeper inside? Maybe comparing to what's happening inside with a weather forecast. Is it cloudy, sunny? Is it changing? Maybe unclear. And as I mentioned, mindfulness is about not judging or criticizing our experience. So any answer is a good answer. It's more about noticing. Now shift attention to your whole body. Just notice how it feels to sit, to be supported by your chair. Notice the weight of your body, the shape of your body. And then bring attention to your abdomen. Notice how the breath slowly moves in and out. Sometimes it can be difficult to connect to the breath, so if you like, you can also place a palm on top of your belly. just underneath the navel. And all we want to notice for this next few rounds of breath is simply the full length of inhale and the full length of exhale, nothing else. Nothing to change about the breath. If it feels short or shallow, long or deep, it doesn't really matter. We want to simply notice how it is at this very moment. Now breath, breathing itself. And very quickly you might notice that the mind is wandering away to planning, daydreaming, worrying, some other things. That's completely fine. That's what mind is doing. And we use these situations when mind wanders away to practice awareness, to notice where it went. And then gently, without any rush, get back to the breath. To notice the full length of inhale and your whole exhale. Let's take a few more rounds of breath like this. Now allow your awareness to expand from your breath to the rest of your body. Sometimes even after a few minutes of practicing, we notice some small shifts. People who are tired and didn't notice they were tired, they start yawning, or maybe your body feels heavy or breath feels a bit longer and deeper. Start noticing things outside your body as well, like sounds, smells, lights. And when you're ready, blink your eyes open to conclude your short mindfulness practice.
Thank you. That was really nice. So that's a practicing episode of this show, so people can follow. Yeah, and what that did to me was really calming down, because at the beginning I was really upset inside, and you asked for the weather forecast. It was rather stormy, thinking about this interview, what to ask you next, what to talk about. But then, yeah, when you guided me through that practice, I felt that those things didn't matter as much anymore, because I was more connected to my body. I think this is what this whole thing is about, right? To feel ourselves again.
Yes, and I really like how you put it, Kirsten, that maybe still you felt a bit worried about the episode or things that should happen next, but you were okay with it. Yeah. And often people, when they start practicing mindfulness, they think that they will clear their head completely, or they will not be angry or frustrated anymore. And this is not the case. We just learn how to relate to these unpleasant or unwanted feelings in a different way, how to allow them to be and not affect us too much. Yeah. I think that's the beauty of mindfulness practice.
So it's a lot about acceptance, right? Accepting Definitely. What is, accepting that I may be nervous, but that's okay, or accepting that I'm breathing hard, and that's just noticing.
Yes, noticing, saying hello to that state, and allowing it to be as if it's a radio that just plays in another room.
Yeah, yeah, and in this world, we move so much and we pay attention to so many things. We never really rest. And even my show is about top performance, like striving towards performance all the time. So how can we relate performance to mindfulness?
Well, performance, it's of course, the way I see it, at least, it's about tapping into our own power, or using our power to the max. But power goes hand in hand with care. So we can't have endless resources. We also need time to replenish these resources, to restore both our body and our mind as well. And often we don't take enough time to rest. And I also like what you said, that we get lots of stimulus from outside world. And there is one interesting fact. When I just started to learn about mindfulness, I was really amazed. So if you look at the human today and compare to 1986, today we consume 10 times more information per day, which equals to amount of information that we get from 174 newspapers. This is the amount of information we get per day, which is insane. And part of it is conscious. We read a book, we watch something, we talk to people, but lots of information that we get is also unconscious or not by our choice. We are approached by advertising. We just continuously in some buzz, for example, in modern offices, it's always open space. So even if you're trying to do one thing, you're always distracted by things around you. So it's always important to also find this moment when you can just pause. And pausing can be very uncomfortable. I know from some clients that tend to strive for high performance, especially leaders in the companies, they find pausing extremely uncomfortable, as if they are not doing something useful, or all of a sudden things that you would rather not think about or deal with, they come to the surface, and that can be in a way an unpleasant experience. So pausing and just finding time to notice things that happen inside can be quite confronting and not necessarily pleasant, but very important.
And they can be very useful as well, because you may understand yourself better. Even a new vision, a new idea may pop up, which can never really come to you when you never rest.
Yes, yes. And that's one of the benefits of mindfulness practice. We unleash our creativity. And maybe, well, sometimes people think creativity is something for the people who are into art, for example, creating another masterpiece, but it's also about how we deal with daily things, decisions we make. Mindfulness helps us to put ourselves into different spot when we are calmer, when we are less reactive, but rather than reacting, we choose our response to things. And sometimes, of course, there are things in life that we can't really influence, right? So certain events happen. Like, for example, let's take the recent one, COVID happened, and probably there is no a single person who would say that was a good thing, but it's something that is out of our control. So how do we deal with it? Do we just find peace? Do we ignore it? Do we accept it? What is the healthy way to deal with things out of our control? And taking care of our mental health also means to dealing with things we can't control.
That's a very interesting aspect. And also I feel that just taking the time to think about our reaction towards something which is happening, that, yeah, only when I rest for a bit, like I just did together with you, when you guided me through that practice, only then can I reflect and decide on, yeah, how to react to things and how to face challenges in life.
Yeah, and there is one really nice formula. When I give an introduction to mindfulness, I always like to show it. It says that event plus reaction equals outcome. But event only stands for 20% of the outcome. 80% is our reaction to it. And mindfulness gives us this chance to choose our reaction. So we all have our triggers. There are people who trigger certain emotions in us, or situations that make us angry, frustrated, or stressed. But we can learn to still deal with these people or events, but choose to respond to them differently. Rather than react, we choose to respond or do nothing. We can also choose to do nothing about it, rather than on autopilot, just giving our regular frustration or irritation to things. So we change our outcome as well, the way we feel after event happened to us.
And that will build our reality, because, yeah, that becomes the reality, how we react to that, how we deal with a certain situation. And there is more to this, I believe, Katya, when we are full of tension all the time, when we never take a rest, this will at the end also have physical consequences, right?
Yes, yes, that's absolutely true. For example, people who tend to work long hours, they often complain about tension in their shoulders. And partly it is because we are not keeping our posture the way it should be, leaning too much to the screen or just being a bit sluggish. But partly it's also because our mental state influences our physical body. Our mind and body are so strongly connected. And just now we are starting to learn more about it, luckily. For example, when we feel stressed or anxious for a long time, we tend to lift our shoulders a bit or even move them to the front to protect our heart, our chest, the part that is fragile. You don't notice it, it's not a big movement, but over time we feel that there is tension, we feel tightness in the chest, we feel pressure in the shoulders, and sometimes the way to release it is to exercise, sometimes the way to release it is to pause and breathe and just allow the gravity to pull your shoulders down again.
I think it's important to convince all these high-performing people, managers, entrepreneurs, to really take care of their mental health, because otherwise there won't be any performance left. I mean, you can maybe go ahead for some time without paying attention to your mind and well-being, but certainly after a while, yeah, there won't be any performance.
Yes, and I think it's also one of the traps that people who are trying to perform as much as they can fall into, especially those people who really love their job and people who are doing, for example, more entrepreneurial job rather than office job or office job with long hours. They think that, okay, I'm tired now, but there is a deadline or I can do it better. So I will push for just a little bit more, another hour, and then after that hour they think I will push for another one. And when it keeps happening for another week or another month or another year, of course we accumulate so much stress, we exhaust our adrenal glands, we exhaust our brain, we exhaust our body by doing so. So on the one hand, it is important to tap into our high performance, to use our resources as much as possible, but it's also important to make time, create time to just step back and rest and relax and allow these resources to be restored again.
What you said earlier really resonates with me, that I feel that when I'm sitting down and paying attention to my breath, it feels as if I would do nothing. And that can potentially make me crazy, thinking, oh, I could do so much for my business right now in this time. I'm just sitting here without doing anything. But after all, it's not that I'm doing nothing. It's that recharging process.
It is recharging process, and very often I hear this, especially when I teach mindfulness in companies, like for example, in a law firm, these people value their time a lot. So spending half an hour on just breathing sounds insane for some of them. But I often give example that with mindfulness, we gain more time. It feels like we spend this, maybe not even half an hour, but 10 minutes a day is enough. Even 5 minutes a day can be enough to practice and notice breathing or notice sensations in the body. But this unlocks more time for us. And the reason for that is because our mind clarity becomes much better. Our focus becomes better. We are less prone for different distractions. We learn to give up multitasking and focus on one thing at a time. So in general, even though we spend some time, we invest time into our mind clarity, into better focus, into better performance.
What else do you, I know that you teach yoga as well, not in addition to that mindfulness, because I think it's all together somehow. What does yoga mean for you in your life?
It's one of the ways to also connect to my body. I indeed teach yoga and more restorative styles. I teach yin yoga when we are on the floor the whole hour, and every pose takes 3 to 5 minutes, so a long time to slowly drop into the pose. And I also teach yoga nidra, or it's also sometimes called yogic sleep, when you just lay down on your back and listen to the guidance. For me, it's the moment to pause, and I guess it's a bit interchangeable with mindfulness, and they're both relatable because in both practices we use our breath, perhaps in a bit different way and for a different purpose, but the outcome can be quite similar. Yoga, of course, also helps to address the physical body, to stretch a bit, to move a bit, to get the energy flowing again.
Yeah, it sounds really enjoyable. And I think this is the important piece in this episode, to not consider that as lost time, but at the contrary, to feel how good this is after all the hustle during our busy days and in our busy lives, to calm down and to pay attention and to take care of ourselves.
Yes, definitely. I think the self-care should be much higher priority for a lot of people than it is now, because we tend to take care of people we love, but often we neglect self-care. We think that we can just keep going, but that's might sound cheesy, but there is this phrase that you can't pour from an empty cup. But it's true. If you don't care of your own energy and your own resources, you can't help others. And I think this is what everyone is striving for, to also take care of their families, of their loved ones, take care of their work that they love, and so on.
I'm really wondering why so many people never stop and think it's a waste of time, and they have no time to breathe, no time to meditate, no time to whatever, sit down. Yeah, you said it earlier, we are so overwhelmed with all that input coming onto us, all that information. Maybe this is one of the factors which brought us there.
Yes, I think so. But also there is one aspect of pausing and maybe just breathing, maybe doing some slow yoga movements or practicing mindfulness, but it can be compared to tuning the radio. We're looking for the signal first. So all this mess, all the things, thoughts, emotions, they can settle down a bit eventually, so the signal gets a bit more clear. And the moment it got clear, it also gets louder. And sometimes things that we notice when we pause are not necessarily pleasant. For example, we notice that we were ignoring the fact that we are continuously irritated. And then this irritation comes to the surface, and this can be unpleasant, but we can't release it without facing it. So maybe that's one of the reasons why people are hesitant. They don't know what will come up and how to deal with it skillfully. That's why it's always good to have a good guided practice rather than dealing with these things on their own. But in general, to say about most of the people, that it feels relaxing. So everyone is happy they did it, but finding time to squeeze this 5 or 10 minutes in the day can be very challenging. But there are ways to do it. There are different ways to, for example, something called habit stacking. When we want to create a new habit, it's good to link it to existing one. For example, every day we do one thing, like brushing the teeth in the morning. So why not linking 5 minutes of meditation to brushing the teeth? So after we brushed our teeth, we can just sit for 5 minutes and then we're done. We feel refreshed, we feel ready for the day.
That's a very good idea, and it sounds feasible, because otherwise I think, oh, I should do some practice today, but then the day starts and yeah, I'm lost in my work and my business, and it will never happen. So that's a good idea, to attach it to something I'm doing anyway.
Yeah, and maybe one more thing that just came to my mind. Mindfulness is only one part of the mindfulness is meditation, but it's much broader. It's how we live our life, because often we are on our autopilot. So we go through the day without noticing things. For example, how we drive from one place to another and we miss the whole route. But luckily we safely get to the place we wanted to get to. But the same happens with the whole day. We just go on autopilot. There are lots of distractions, lots of tasks on the table. So we try to manage everything without noticing what we are doing. So I don't know if that resonates with you a bit, Kirsten. Like, did you ever notice that, for example, you wanted to check something on your phone, but 15 minutes later you're doing something else and not actually accomplishing the task you wanted to do, or leaving the home and forgetting your wallet or things like that, right? It's very easy to slip. So it's important not only to add this kind of practices to the day, but also to pay a bit more attention to what we do during the day. And maybe one of the easiest things to do is to pick one routine activity that you do every day. For example, let's go back to that example, taking the shower. When we take the shower, we use this 5 minutes in the morning. Can we also practice mindfulness at the same time? So use all our senses to be fully present in that experience. And it's much easier when we go on holiday. We feel like there are so many things. We notice the weather, we notice things around it, but we can also do it when we are doing things that we do every day, simple things. So that when, for example, one takes shower, you can notice the sound of the water, the temperature, the movement of your hand, the smell of the soap, and so on. So it makes our life much richer. We don't need to wait for some special experience to happen. We can make our daily experiences more special, but by simply being more present in them.
Yeah, that's very nice. And what you explained, Katya, is that we need actually 0 minutes to practice mindfulness. So there's absolutely no excuse from anybody.
Went from 10 to 0.
Yeah, I have no time for that. Yeah, I know what you mean. To be very honest, sometimes I ended up, I want to do something like read an email or respond, and then I'm distracted opening my mailbox, then I'm reading other things, and I'm doing everything at once, and I'm not there in that very moment, which is a pity. Yeah, then we miss some things. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, we miss small things, then we miss more of the small things, and after all, we miss big part of our life, unfortunately, with that.
Yeah.
But it's one of the reasons that even though we now consume so much more information, and each of us also produces so much more information than even 20 years ago, our brain did not change that much to take it in or to process it. And we need to help it a bit.
Very nice. Yeah, I feel that during the course of this interview, I'm getting calmer and I pay more attention. So it already had some effect. So this is definitely an episode to replay and re-practice the practice part we did before together. Thank you very much. Where can people find you and get in touch with you to learn more about what you offer and what you're doing?
I'm still working on my website, so that one is still under development, but definitely they can find me on LinkedIn. I'm very responsive to my messages, so if they have any questions about things we discussed or mindfulness in general or mental health in general, they can always reach out, or they can also follow me on Instagram. I have quite fresh accounts, but my aim is to post practical tips that people can use every day, something very small, very doable, even more doable than this 10 minutes of meditation a day.
Very good. So I will link everything in the show notes so people don't need to remember. They can just click on the links to get in touch with you. Katya, it was a beautiful episode. Thank you so much for being my guest. And yeah, good luck with your business and to bring more mindfulness to this busy world. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Kirsten. Time was, it really went by quickly. Thanks a lot for inviting me. It was a pleasure to talk to you.